we'll just wait for some of the other electeds to join. All right. Well, hello. We are off the screen over there. I know that Commissioner Granger, can y'all hear us okay? Good. Commissioner Granger and Commissioner Lucas will both be a little late for this, and I'm sure Commissioner Hughes will be joining us momentarily. So this is a CRA virtual workshop, and so we're going to be discussing the Boys and Girls Club and their proposal to to partner with the CRA and to help meet some of our goals and align with the CRA plan. And so we're joined by Hank Hill, who is the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club here, and also Arthur Cullen, one of the board members, one of the big board members, I'm told, of the Boys and Girls Club. So I know y'all have seen the proposal that we got several weeks ago, back in November, from the Boys and Girls Club, as well as the letter from Nevin's team on how to move forward and how it fits in with our plans. So I'm happy to recognize you, Hank, if you want to say a few things before we get started.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to partner with the city. As always, Boys and Girls Clubs is a very important aspect of the community. We serve kids who really do need us most and those families. And so I appreciate the opportunity to partner with you guys. I know that city has a good track record with support, and we certainly appreciate that. And so I don't know, Mr. Arthur, if you want to say anything.
I would just say, as a club kid, we have a saying: once a club kid, always a club kid at the Boys and Girls Clubs. The facility and the operations in which we're talking about today was actually, I lived in the trailer park right in front of the Chapman Club growing up, and so it's very special to sit here today and be talking about a organization that 2026 will be our 60th year in Bay County. And as Hank said, the city has always been extremely supportive. And on behalf of our board, I would just like to say thank you very much.
So in the proposal, and this was, meets with our plan. And so I don't know if you have the board has any questions of staff or of Mr. Zimmerman and his team. Hang on here, Brian Granger.
When was the Millville facility opened? Just curious.
I believe in the 1990s, it was opened over there.
Arthur went there in the 1890s because he's old.
Yeah, we actually had a different building.
Hey, Brian.
I think they call it the East Club at that point, but that was in a separate facility. The one that we're currently talking about in that Millville area, right across from Dappen Park, was built in there.
Actually, Mayor, back in the day, your dad would probably remember this. There was an old community building south of Millville Elementary, right off of Everett Avenue, which is where the original Millville Boys Club was. Yeah, pretty cool.
How many kids will this club serve?
150.
150.
So Yeah, so we actually serve about 150 kids a year currently. We're serving kids in the Millville area at Margaret K. Lewis School right now. And so we're kind of limited a little bit on capacity. And with the new facility, when it does come online, we're adding additional square footage that will help us serve additional kids in the area. As you guys probably can imagine, with childcare, there's a lot of licensing and different issues sometimes that agencies like ours face, and one of those is square footage per child. There's with because we accept school readiness funds, which help pay for low wage earners and those kinds of kids to come to the club. So we're not licensed, we're not daycare, we're youth development. We try to stress that it is different than daycare, but we go through some of the same hoops that child cares do because we're partnering with ELC and those type of agencies. And so, to make a long story short, we've got about 85 registered members currently, and we average around 65 to 70 at the Margaret K. Lewis site as we're speaking.
How many staff members, Hanks, do you guys have over in that facility? What will be your optimal staff in the facility when it's done?
Yeah, so we keep a 1-to-20 ratio, and our goal is to extend our operating hours at that facility so we can serve some additional teens when the littles are not in the room, or not in the building, so that you can do some team programming strategic to them. So I would say about 6 staff will be in there at any one given time. And that includes our full-time staff. It'll be a full-time staff supplemented by part-time staff. So one full-time, probably about 5 part-time staff.
Okay. So 150 kids. That's awesome. Huge need, massive need. I did want to clarify, so explain to me the difference, guys, of why we can't do why we're doing operational programming versus what we do with like facade improvements and and all of these other things. I'm not a super 100% clear on why we're having to go this route versus, hey, we invest in commercial buildings all the time, so why are we having to do operational versus building in this specific instance?
Well, Nevin's team is going to answer that question.
Oh, good.
Yes, Joy Marler's here, and Joy has primary responsibility for the CRA, but she was helpful in trying to shape the proposal, as far as not the proposal, but just what the CRA can and can't do. But I'll let her answer that.
I think that it's a lots of reasons that go into it. This is a nonprofit. It's not a typical, we have a grant program established for a facade that they're applying for, kind of thing. But there is a need for the programming and all of that they have already, in place, that they could either put their funds towards programming, or they could put their funds towards finishing out their building. And because our CRA plans align with their programming will help us accomplish that. And the CRA is not in the business of doing some of those things. We can touch on many of the different factors in the Millville updated plan specifically, which are in the matrix that Mr. Hill provided.
So is this a plan issue, a statute issue, or just an internal preference on the nonprofit building status stuff?
Well, and I want to piggyback on that. My apprehension is open the door to 500 other requests of, I just started a nonprofit 2 days ago. I need $400,000 for programming too. And so that's my concern, piggybacking on Josh's questions.
I think the answer, I'll go ahead and answer part of this one. The answer is yes to Josh. It is a plan issue, and it is a statute issue. Okay. And I believe that, and Joy can tell us who we patterned this, what this program is patterned after, as far as another CRA that you encountered at one of your seminars.
Oh, I did not write it down. There was another CRA that actually worked with a Boys and Girls Club specifically, and we patterned this after that, and I can get you that information. I sent a news article and some other. I think it was.
I think it was. It was definitely South
it was
East Florida.
South Florida,
Yeah.
but I did not.
But the difference is it wasn't capital. It wasn't giving money to build stuff. It was that the programming fit the CRA plan. And the Boys and Girls Club did a great job on that matrix where they have on the left side the plan elements and then how that programming feeds the plan. But that matches up with the plan where building a building or giving money to build a building it's just not is not what others do. They really focus on the programming fitting the plan, and because the building may or may not end up serving the CRA long term, and it's not economic development. So it's not like a business. It's economic development. It's a not-for-profit that's providing different portions of the plan.
So you're saying because the facility is not a direct economic contributor, so like a retail space or a restaurant or something like that, is why we can't contribute to the actual facility based in statute? Is that my correct understanding?
Yes.
Okay. So then to echo what Alan's concern is, I am concerned, like, from the standpoint of, like, how does this not open up 1,000 other, nonprofits, asking for operational funding. I mean, the reality is, I don't know that I would do this if it wasn't to specifically expand the program, help in that way, if that makes sense. So by addressing the facility.
Yeah. I don't know how we prevent that. I think that was one of the staff concerns early on back in the summer when we first started talking about this, or the early fall. I think this is somewhat unique, where this facility had already existed. It's been, to Mr. Cullen's point, 60 years. They've been ministering and serving our community and the families and loving on people. And so, it's kind of, I view it as a recovery effort, for something that's got not just years, but decades of service in our community. So maybe that differentiates to some degree, perhaps.
And also, I think that it's unique in this situation too, because there's a hole there in the Millville community and Sierra District right now because their building is not finished and because those programs are not offered on the scale that they need to be offered. They're temporarily working out of Margaret K. Lewis and all that. So if they come to you with the request and it's a unique set of factors, and they're going to be able to provide the types of things that tie back into our plan for this period of time, and it wouldn't necessarily be an ongoing grant.
And so I think one of the things I still am confused. I hate to ask the question again, but a park doesn't have a direct economic benefit either, but yet we spend CRA funding on a park. So I'm trying to understand, like, how can capital improvements be in these certain categories, but not in this category, if that makes sense.
Part of our plan is that just providing recreation opportunity. And that's what
we own the parks as well. So
we need to address that.
And we also, the city owns the parks as well. So it's not contributing to a third party nonprofit organization.
Sorry, Commissioner Hughes, go ahead, sir. You have your hand up.
What if there were some qualifications? Because I, along with Josh and Alan, are, everybody's going to ask, but if there's some qualifications that you had to meet that are pretty steep, that would call out a lot of the nonprofits, but also, or you're helping rebuild something. Because I think Josh or Joy just said that would fill a huge void in the Millville area for kids that families have grown up without over there. Not much different than what we heard yesterday at the MLK Center. So And Jonathan, when I first brought it up to you, you were like, yeah, I mean, every other body's going to ask for it. I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. But how do you, are there some tough qualifications to maybe do that? And it keeps others from asking. I don't know.
The one idea is that it is appropriate that the Boys and Girls Club cannot build a building that is essential to provide their mission and pay for programming that they need.
Yeah.
And so if they promise that they're going to keep building that building, raising money and getting it over the finish line, and so they can get help doing the programming, it's accomplishing the same thing, which is getting a building built. But the CRA money is not going to a building that's under control of a third party not-for-profit and may not be of a long-term benefit, like maybe a park that's under city control, but it is going to programming for a short period of time. And I think you could draw a distinction that way. Mm-hmm. So it's fine to say that the money's going to programming, but they need it because they're spending the money to build a building that is going to help them, do programming in the future.
Yes, Mayor.
So let's say we work out the MOU, we move into February, we're voting on this. I'm just guessing at dates. What's the timeline on us providing the money and the timeline to getting the facility back open to provide the services that we're paying for?
So yes, number one, we do plan to bring a draft MOU to the February 3rd CRA board meeting. We do not have one in January, so it will be the first Tuesday of February. And I mean, the money can be transferred. I mean, as soon as, I think from a transaction standpoint, I'd have to defer to the Boys and Girls Club on the timeline of the programming needs.
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to avoid,
the building needs, and so
yeah, what we're trying to avoid is
programming.
It's 2030 and something's happened and they're still sitting on the money and we haven't gotten the facility open. That's the concern. So
yeah, I don't believe we would transfer the money until such time that they're ready to.
That would all be outlined.
Yeah, it would be outlined in the MOU, but it would be when they're ready to, kind of move forward with the programming operations. So either near or right after completion of the structure. But
Go ahead.
If I might, and I have discussed privately, I think maybe with you, Mayor, this outcome for us, if the Boys and Girls get this from you, is last dollars. So we pretty much have everything we need to begin construction. Architectural plans are at about 98% finished for that club. I was explaining to staff earlier that the way we were able to get a $2 million appropriation from Congressman Dunn, $1 million for Millville, $1 million for 19th Street. But because it was filed as one bill, we have to draw those down together. And we've actually had to wait on 19th Street because we were about 300 plus, probably $350,000, $400,000 light on raising funds for Millville. And we can't expend those funds and get reimbursed until we have both of those projects underway and applying for reimbursements at the same time. So if I'm answering your question correctly, these are last dollars for us. And as soon as we can get everything moving, you will see construction begin on 3rd Street.
Yeah. Nevin, did you have something to add, sir?
Yes. Okay. I believe the MOU, which has not been done, that the money would only pay for programming in the new building. That's kind of a question.
That's my understanding.
I mean, we were going to work with them on timelines and how that goes, as far as they'll be providing the services in that area. So yes, that's certainly something that could be in the MOU.
So that's something we can look at doing. We have not had that specific discussion yet.
All right, Commissioner Street, your hands up, sir.
Yeah, so you guys have a gap at the one that's on 19th Street too?
No, sir.
You don't. You're fully funded?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, so but Arthur,
Yes,
you have to finish that one. You lost me on how the Third Street one gets done.
So the way Congressman Dunn put in for his appropriation, it was done as one bill. Hindsight being 2020, if we had gotten those in two separate bills, 19th Street would already be completed. But because of the shortfall and quite frankly, architects and timelines, and everything has been extremely frustrating, but we have to apply for the $1 million for each site together. So as we spend money, we will draw down those dollars to basically reimburse us for the money spent. And we have raised a majority of these funds privately also. And so we will use our money to draw down and reapply for and get receipt of those funds from the federal government. Basically,
Okay.
kind of same way y'all have to do probably in for FEMA dollars.
Commissioner Street, do you have your hand up again, or is it still
Yeah,
up?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
What's your waiting list right now on kids?
What's the what?
The waiting list.
Honestly, it's transportation. We could serve additional kids if we can get them to the club site, where we're currently serving kids at Margaret K. Lewis. For example, Oscar Patterson would love to have some of their kids come to the club.
Mhm.
It's right over there close to us. But because of the way the elementary schools get out, because of the shortage of drivers, we can't serve that school. We're currently serving Parker, Cedar Grove, Cherry Street, and
And what does it take to get more transportation so that I understand?
What does it take? Drivers and money. I mean, to be honest with you.
What's the typical, to serve the rest of the elementary schools that are in the city? What?
So the city does not have enough drivers, and the school district does not have enough drivers. Let me rephrase that. And because of that, even their administrative staff are oftentimes, you've probably heard this argument before, their administrative staff who work in transportation are actually driving buses because they don't have enough drivers. If I had another driver, I could put another vehicle on the road, but it's challenging when you don't have the supply and the demand is high.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and so I don't have a total right now that is like we keep during the summer because we're only going to take so many kids, based off staffing and those kinds of things, and then space available. But like right now, we don't have necessarily a long wait list. Do we have parents out there that call like from Callaway? Yes. Callaway, we don't serve until the summer. Those students can't get a ride to our facility.
I would love to know, as we're going through our processes and budget for next year, what your needs are that would increase the capacity for after school programming with the Girls and Boys Club. If that's transportation, if that's facility, if that's whatever it is, like it would be good to see something from you guys on how we could better serve the kids in our community. And there may be a better, more efficient way for us to do things and partnering together. I mean, it's a huge need. It's a huge need in St. Andrews. It's a huge need in Millville, Glenwood, and everywhere. So, if we could get some kind of like parameters that, hey, we can increase our programming by, I did something similar with Habitat for Humanity the other day. We were having a conversation of like, what does it take to double how many houses you guys build every year? And they were able to lay out a clear plan of what it would take to do that. And honestly, it was pretty achievable from a partnership perspective. I don't know that that's the case here, but I mean, I just hate hearing that there's kids that aren't getting served, and there may be a way for us to do it. So,
if I may, speak to that just a little bit. The Chamber of Commerce has I don't know, it's a task force, child care task force. Is it child care task force? Okay.
Mhm.
I've actually participated in several of their meetings, and it is a national problem. It is definitely a Florida problem. When you look at the Chamber of Commerce and some of the reports that have come out with lost economic productivity by parents who either have to leave work because they have to go pick their child up after school because there's no place for them to go, or they have to call out of work because a daycare or a child center is not operational that day or whatever. And so there's definitely a workforce issue, and the Florida Chamber of Commerce, it's like 4.9 billion with a B of lost productivity, I believe, in a single year for the state of Florida. And so the chamber being kind of at the forefront of working with multiple agencies, not just Boys and Girls Club, but other, issues that arise with childcare, I would say they would be a good starting point for discussion as well. But it is a critical need. I mean, if our parents can't drop their kid off and know at school time that they're going to have a place until 5 o'clock to go, what are they going to do? And the school system has base in several schools, but what we're quickly going to find out, and I'll be very honest with you. I know this is recording, but school age children are a lower priority of service because they can be latchkey kids. And that's the truth, man. Funding follows that. And unfortunately, that's not always what's best. We have a reading deficiency problem in this county. Third grade reading levels are terrible. And if you happen to go to Parker, if you happen to go to Cedar Grove, Lucille Moore, those schools are struggling. They're like 27, 25, and 29% of kids are reading on grade level. And that's scary. That's scary. We have to do something about it. And I'm all for participating for sure and serving as many kids as we can. And transportation is a key cog. If you can't get kids there, you can't change their lives.
Yep. Commissioner Street, you're muted, sir.
So I just wanted to draw attention to a few things. One, we just talked about MLK Rec Center yesterday, and a kid that's under 15 has to have a parent with them. So if you think about it, you leave high school, you can't go, or you leave middle school, you can't go to the MLK Rec Center without having some type of after-school programming associated with it. And this piece, and I do want to push a little on legal from the perspective of, you just heard what Hank said. There is an economic development side to this equation. Like, parents can't work until 5 unless there's childcare for their kids after school. That's just the reality of it. And so, of the facilities that we're talking about, I think there's probably a really good argument to hear that this is helping not only kids and teaching them to read and to knowing how to do the things in life, but it's also an economic stabilization for families that really have to have two incomes to survive, or a singular income working past beyond when school ends. And so whether it's transportation, whether it's facility, whatever that is, I just love to see, after school programming expand in the most efficient way possible. And I think that's one of the things that's impressed me about Boys and Girls Club is their cost per child is one of the best out there, as far as from what they're able to do. And a lot of it has to do with how they're leveraging federal resources, state resources, and nonprofit donations, just from a wide national base of donors, that they're able to do that. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I just want to draw attention to that, hey, this is going to be a challenge, and we didn't talk about it yesterday, but it's going to come up. And it's just about when.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I know, gosh, it was back in the summer, we were discussing Boys and Girls Club and potentially using them as a collaborative partner on MLK Rec Center. Where did that conversation end up?
I think that was something that Jared Jones was more point on, and he's not here. I know that I'd have to kind of go back and refresh my memory. I'm happy for you guys to kind of jump in. I know after initial meeting, I know my understanding from Jared was that there were some questions about bringing back some different proposals, but creating something that is kind of open and free to the public. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Arthur. Yeah.
We just submitted an unsolicited proposal on that. Hank actually worked on that for quite a while and put it together and set a budget on it. And I, quite candidly, I don't think we heard back from that.
I'm interested either, not necessarily on this call having a full discussion, but certainly at some point either in budget season or whenever the time is appropriate. I know we've kind of proceeded down a path, but always interested in partnering, especially people with long track records like Boys and Girls Club. And we build facilities and potentially there's a greater partnership to be had.
Absolutely.
If I can circle back for just a second to Commissioner Street's comments on transportation. Historically, prior to the storm, any kids at a school that was within the zone of a school could ride the school bus to our clubs. Well, as staffing got shorter, those types of things, slowly but surely, this bus couldn't offer spots for 20 kids. This bus couldn't offer spots for. So over time, and it happened pretty quickly, we actually took on the sole responsibility of the transportation for our kids to come to all of our clubs. And as you guys all know, a lot of the kids that live within our city, like especially those that Hank brought up from Patterson, most of those kids just don't have a family member that can go pick them up from school, drive them to the Boys and Girls Club, and then come back and get them at 6 o'clock in the evening. So the challenge has been that for us as an organization. A new school bus cost us, $100,000. New vans cost us $60,000. In the last 2 years as an organization, we bought 2, right?
We've actually purchased about $250,000 worth of transportation.
Yeah.
To bolster. We bought a 26 passenger and 3 vans.
Yeah. I just wanted you to know the historical data on that, because used to the kids could just hop on the bus, ride to the Boys and Girls Club, and now it's our responsibility to grab them and get them there. So it's a challenge for us as a board to bring it all together. We would love to be able to pick up every kid that needs a place to go after school, because as Hank said, we provide extra reading, workforce development, all of those types of things that we're able to work with people like Mr. Reuter and mechanics. They come to our clubs and work with our kids and teach them. It might sound small, but most of our kids have never had the opportunity to change a tire, but at our clubs, they do, and it's a really big impact for the kids that are within your city.
Have any partnerships with Bayway for transportation ever happened?
So we've had some discussions in the past, but the cost was astronomical on what parents' ability to pay and what we could afford to pay for transportation. So that, and before this meeting, we were talking about the shortage of drivers, and my view is that if someone drives for another organization, any organization, and they have a CDL and can legally drive for hours, I'm open to the possibility of them driving for us or filling in and driving a couple days a week. And, together that might create a pipeline of satisfied employees who can stay working at 2 jobs and it kind of fit into their schedule without, having to seek employment elsewhere, and so, but unfortunately, when you do get a driver, I've found that people don't want to share those names or those lists of names because they're afraid they'll leave. And so I haven't been successful at any of those partnerships, actually.
Yeah. Commissioner Street?
Yeah, I'd want us to look at our CBDG stuff that we've got. We've got a yearly allocation, and just look at what the most efficient use of that. I definitely don't want the city, being a bus operator. So that's not what I'm asking. But I think we've tapped on something that's a huge need, specifically in the areas that I mentioned, and it just so happens to be eligible for the CBDG funds that we have as well. So there could be a big thing for us to incentivize here so that we can see more kids helped. I mean, that's the reality with it. I mean, these dollars are going to get spent, we might as well make them go as far as they can.
Commissioner Lucas has now joined. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Anything else to say?
I would just like to say thank you and to the staff and team. Hank and I have had multiple meetings with both legal and CRA staff, and they have been, first of all, understanding of what we do and how it helps the city, and have really been great partners to work with and getting this process through. So thank you very much.
All right. Commissioner Lucas, before we jump off, or Commissioner Granger, I don't know if y'all have any questions based on, the letter from Mr. Zimmerman and his team through Ms. Marler, or the kind of the proposal.
So good afternoon. My apologies to the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you for what you do for the youth in our community. This is an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of children. And the only question I have is, will we be offering an RFP, or how are we designating this? I know sole source doesn't apply, but because this is going to pique interest in other nonprofits, and how are we prepared to handle that?
Yeah, that is a great question, Commissioner Lucas. So we're actually planning to bring a draft MOU to the February 3rd CRA board meeting, based on our conversations and direction from the board last year. And so we'll be discussing this in more detail. Also, get an update from Mr. Jones on some of the conversations as was requested around the MLK Junior Rec Center, and all of that. I think we talked about before you joined that, this is, an existing, nonprofit, serving a vital need in our community. And it's not something that they just started. They've 60 years is what they shared with us that they've been in Bay County. And so, I think this is, unique in helping with the program, and then they have, they're on a path to the building. It's supporting that, is the thing. I don't know, Mr. Zimmerman, if you want to add anything.
Commissioner Lucas, you asked an excellent point.
I already said
question. That. Yeah, I'll say it again. And that has been discussed somewhat as far as what parameters could be built into the memorandum of understanding that would deal with this unique situation. And what is unique is that, but for the hurricane and but for the building being destroyed, the Boys Club and Girls Club would be able to offer programming there in Millville at the historic site. But they can't. But rather than give money, from our perspective, and we'll provide a memorandum that outlines it better, but from our perspective, giving money to a not-for-profit for a capital project is not the best best way to approach CRA funding. However, we could put in the agreement that the money is for programming, because the Boys and Girls Club cannot both build a building and provide programming at the same time. And so the programming dollars would be available if they agree to build the building, which is almost fully funded, and they can get that accomplished. And so the CRA needs, there's a matrix that was provided at the end of the letter that Joy had, that was provided by the Boys and Girls Club, that matches their programming to a CRA goal and objective. So that's what we'll be looking at. There's been excellent questions, including yours. That's the third time now, but including yours, but have been asked by the other commissioners too. And we'll look at them, and we'll be able to provide you and all of the board members more clarity on those.
Yeah. Commissioner Street, your hand's up, sir.
Yeah, I would just love to see you tie in the economic impact of childcare, and specifically after school programming. And I think citing the chamber and what their objective is, and that piece, I think, would be very helpful in understanding why this is so important, even from an economic development standpoint.
Okay, excellent.
Anybody else for the good of the order? Commissioner Granger, anything to add, sir?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to the Boys and Girls Club for the service that you provide to Panama City. I also agree with Commissioner Street. If this is something that we're going to move forward with, we definitely need to tie it to the economic impacts. I've had the same concerns that the rest of you have also voiced, of there's always that fear that if we do something like this, that there's going to be a line out the door, and sometimes there is. But if we tie this to economic impact, then I think that gives us a more objective standard moving forward on anybody else who may come to us and say, "Hey, I want $400,000." So with that in mind, I would have rather have put money onto the capital expenditures. I understand the legal reasons and why we would probably not need to do that, and probably need to move in a different direction. Yeah, that's where I'm kind of with that one. So the only other issue that I could see is that I don't think anybody thought of this, and I'll preface it that I don't think anybody thought of Boys and Girls Club being a beneficiary of CRA funds, which is why we didn't get that input from the folks who live in the CRA. But I would like to see, if we do move forward with this, because it'd be the first time that we did it. To my knowledge, I would like to see some kind of just feedback from the folks who live in this CRA, if this is a direction that they'd like to see their tax dollars. But it's just something I think. I think it's something that just hasn't been addressed in this process.
I'd just like to add to that point. There's certainly the need when you look at the socioeconomic status of Census Tract 18, where the Boys and Girls Club is located, as well as 17, and then within a few miles, Census Tract 16. Those are primary. They have large economic disparity. And so investing in bringing back something that they've been struggling to do, we can see the long-term effect in changing the trajectory of the lives, and reducing the kids who determine that it's better to go, steal from cars, or, do those nuisance kinds of activities. And so with Panama City being the urban core, we've got the basis for all of this. And I think laying out the parameters so that when someone comes else, and when someone else comes and say, hey, you know, they can see the parameters that have been laid out for this. And I think that's what's key, and that's what's important as we look at moving forward.
All right. Anybody else for the good of the order? All right.
This meeting is slightly shorter than last night's.
And we are grateful, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh,
I mean, we do have like 4 more hours we could fill.
yeah. Well, this
You
is
guys
just
want to
the
talk
first-
about the marina?
I was just going to say,
No.
this is just the first item. We have 19 more to go. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yep. See you. Thank you.
guys. Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
All right, take care, everybody.